All right, I want to do another deck tech today. This one I called Lost in Time with Constant Mist and Time Walk. Let's get to the points. So the majority of our points are in Time Walk, 7-point card. Obviously, that's the highest that any card is pointed at 7. So we're trying to use this card a lot, or this effect, this extra turn effect. Crop rotation, 1 point. One thing, you often see crop rotation in decks that try and abuse certain lands. This is a deck that is trying to do that. It's not using Strip Mine, but it is using Mystic Sanctuary, which we'll show you shortly, as well as Mystical Tutor, 2 points, which searches for any instant or sorcery in your deck, puts it on top of your library, either of these, or anything else in the deck. We have, I believe, 43 instants and sorceries in the deck. Oh, sorry, a little bit high, 38. 10 sorceries, 28 instants in the deck. So this is our point spread. I want to get to kind of how we're using the Time Walk and the Constant Mists to take a lot of turns from our opponent and not allow them to interact. So with Time Walk and these cards, we're able to take infinite turns, essentially. Assuming we have some extra islands in play. When you play the Mystic Sanctuary, it enters untapped if you have 3 other islands. And then when it does, you can put an instant or sorcery from your graveyard on top of your library. So if you've taken an extra turn, you can put the Time Walk back on top of your library. Next turn, you'll draw it. You can take an extra turn. Now, that's great, but we need a way to get the Mystic Sanctuary into our yard so that we can replay it. You could also blink it, something like that, but we're using Constant Mists in this deck with the buyback of sacrificing a land, which we can sacrifice the Mystic Sanctuary, and then use the Crucible of Worlds to play it again, which lets us put the Time Walk back on top, draw it, take turns by casting this buyback spell of Constant Mists. The main effect is sacrificing the land so that we can replay it, but it also acts as a fog. Creatures deal no combat damage this turn to let you get to that point. You can return it with a regrowth effect later if you've used it and you didn't want to sacrifice land, something like that. We also have several ways, not just the Crucible of World, to play lands from graveyard or to get lands back from the graveyard. So that's one of the ways we can take extra turns. Now this one is reliant on the graveyard. There's another one that is not reliant on the graveyard, which we'll show you here. Here's some other extra turn spells we play: Temporal Manipulation, Temporal Mastery, and Time Warp. And with these cards, this is another way that you can take all the turns from your opponent. So if you have a Time Warp on your deck, let's say it's the top card of your deck, and you draw it with Kefnet in play, you can cast a copy of that spell. The copy costs less, so it'll cost 3, it'll cost 5, it'll cost 1 blue, whatever it is. And then, using manipulation, you can put the original card back on top. So you can cast the copy, put the original one back on top, next turn, because you've taken the extra turn, do the exact same thing. With Sylvan Library, it works that you put it on the top of the stack with 2 other cards. I'll just grab our 2 points. And as long as you stack it correctly, you can draw the card, say, hey, this is the first card I've drawn. Now I'm going to draw my Sylvan Library cards. Great. This card I revealed. And now I can put any cards back. So I'll just put these 2 back. Keep this one in hand. Now, your next turn, hey, look, I've magically drawn this one again. Make the copy, and you can keep doing that process. With Jace, it's the same. You just brainstorm every turn. There's also brainstorm in the deck, but this is the permanent way to keep doing it. So you just draw it as the first card. Make sure you don't cast it. You can cast the copy, and then put the original one back. Draw it again next turn. So that's how we're taking all the extra turns. Let's show how we get to these points where we're abusing our opponent. All right, I want to get to the bulk of the deck here. We have 18 counter spells. I'll just flip through them quickly. These are some ways to reset your Mystic Sanctuary if you've used it. Just really good counters, pretty good counters. Search effect for either your Constant Mists, maybe your Life from the Loam, your Time Walk, or a counterspell. Good way to kind of reset the board if you've let a few things through, and then a couple more good counterspells, late game card draw. I'm probably going to talk a little bit too much about You Find Some Prisoners, but I do want to do it. I'll read it through fully. Instant, break their chains. You can destroy an artifact, or you can choose Interrogate them. Exile top 3 cards of target opponent's library. Choose one of them. Until the end of your next turn, you may play that card, and you may spend mana as though it's mana of any color to cast it. So you can find a land off of it. You can also find combo pieces, strand those in exile. I find this impulse-like effect is really good in a deck like this where sometimes, you do want that modality of destroying artifacts like a sword that's causing some problems, some stacks piece that's giving you issues, and then having the option to, okay, well, they didn't do anything on their turn. I didn't use my counterspell. I'm going to use this impulse-like effect on their deck. And for that reason, I think, you guys should really play this. I think this is a really good card. And it's similar to the lines of a Braid. Well, a Braid, sometimes you're playing a control deck, they don't have creatures, but they'll often have some artifact. Both these cards, I think, share a similar space, and I think you should try You Find Some Prisoners out. We have the Life from the Loam, Recovery, Solve the Equation. This solves a lot of your problems. Finds anything you need from your deck, whether it's some removal spell, bounce spell, counter spell, time walk spell. A little bit of ramp. We don't have too much in the deck, but I find these 1 mana unkillable ones. They are killable, but not to your typical like a Braid style effects. Some late game card draw. A little bit of ramp again. Some ways to fill our yard. We do have like the Bala Get Recovery. Some other ways to get cards back from the yard, as well as we're playing Uro, so helps. Then just some other good cantrips, Mental Note, Similar, Impulse, and Brainstorm. And then the Planeswalkers in the deck. Again, I've put Tamio in front because of this main ability here. Well, I guess the main ability is the -3. It's a regrowth effect. Return any card from your graveyard to your hand. The passive stops discards and stops sacrifice from your opponents. Then the +1 will also mill a bunch of cards, fill your yard, so that you're able to find stuff with it, then recur. These are also nice roadblocks, I find, for your opponent. Oko, don't need to really talk about him. He's super good. Ral, we have 38 instants and sorceries, so that can keep a lot of other planeswalkers in check, as well as, well, if we're in a loop of taking extra turns, this is just a win con. Being able to take 2 extra turns in a row with his -2 ability, also really strong. And Renin 6, another busted planeswalker where we're returning. We could use this to return the Mystic Sanctuary to our hand, as well as pinging things down like Dark Confidants. So that's the majority of the deck. I might as well, since they're right here, just go over some of the lands. We have a lot of basics in this deck. 5 forests and 12 snow-covered islands. You don't need snow lands. I used to have some more snow things in here. I've taken them out for other cards. Castle Vantress, good utility land. Fiery Islet, where we do have it for mana, but of course, with all our return lands from the graveyard, we can just use it to keep drawing cards. This is a good draw outlet. Some fetch lands, More fetch lands and just, yeah, color producing lands. Wasteland is our only other utility. I guess the Waterlogged Grove. But those are really the lands we have. Mostly we're just trying to find the Mystic Sanctuary, which, if you didn't know, is an island. Oh, where did I put it? Maybe it's here. It's an island, so you can fetch it with a Scalding Tarn. That's an important thing to note. So you have 4 fetch lands that can find the Mystic Sanctuary. So not too much interesting going on with our creatures. We don't have very many. I believe it's 14. I like these as our ramp spells or our ramp creatures. They cost 2, so you're not playing them turn 1 anytime, but they're really resilient in that they're hexproof, so they can't just get bolted out of the sky. Really like those for that. A little bit of a draw spell. I'm in an aggressive metagame, so having something like this just to hold the line for half a second is often really welcome. Lands from graveyard, extra lands a turn, as well as fixing your mana, although you really have no problem with that. Some card advantage when you get to play the lands off the top, as well as knowing what's coming and gaining you life. Uro, okay, this guy's busted. Nightpeck Ambusher, I really like. You're holding up counterspells a lot, and when you don't, or when your opponent doesn't cast something into your open mana, you can flash in this guy and just keep holding up your counterspells. I really like this card. 4/4 also doesn't hurt. Clothis, the God of Destiny. This is your main graveyard control card that you have for your opponents. Really strong card in that it keeps you gaining life. So in aggressive meta games, I think you should always be looking to play a Clothis. Thing in the Ice. With all our instants and sorceries, this thing flips pretty easy, as well as whacks pretty hard. Svelune of Sea and Sky. I did have a tireless tracker in this slot, and I put Svelune in because it doesn't die as easily on the first time you play it on turn 3. Being a 4 toughness body is really good, and getting that ability to just attack, draw a card, not have to worry about it. We don't really have any other merfolks in the deck, so that part won't really matter. Neither will the first part, but a 3/4 that draws you cards is really good. Snapcaster Mage, Seagate Stormcaller, take 2 extra turns with your Time Walk, and Brazen Borrower. So that is really the deck. There's a couple cards that are coming in Innistrad Midnight Hunt that I might consider putting in here as well. We'll see when it comes out. It hasn't come out yet, so I don't have access to those cards. Consider is a card that I would definitely play in this deck. I think that card's really good. There's also an Ooze, Slow Gurk, I think, who I would consider playing in this deck. He plays a very different role, but the fact that when he leaves, you get to return 3 lands from your graveyard to your hand is a good benefit. So, thank you for watching, and I hope you can send some of your opponents to be lost in time as you take all the turns from them. Thanks again, guys. Have a good one.